Handling errors is a key part of your iOS development journey. Whether you're connecting to a backend or loading a JSON file, errors will definitely pop up. In this video, we'll refactor our code to gracefully handle errors. Currently, our file uses fatal error. This was good to help us understand how to load our API credentials, but it's not a long-term solution. Let's dive in and learn how to handle errors better. We'll start by creating a new file to keep all our errors organized. Hit Command N on your keyboard, Swift file, next, errors, create, make some space after import foundation, enum, API config error, :error, comma, localized error with braces. This is the first time we've seen an enum. Enums are used for grouping related values together in a way that's easy to manage and use. Think of them like a list of options or categories you can choose from. In this enum, we'll list all the possible errors related to our API config. We've also made our enum conform to the error and localized error protocols. Error allows the enum to be used for throwing errors in functions. Localized error enables us to provide more user-friendly messages or logs. This makes it easier to debug issues. These two protocols help our enum handle and describe errors in a clean way. Inside the braces, type case, file not found, enter, case, data loading failed, parentheses, underlying error, :error, right arrow key, enter, case, decoding failed, underlying error, error. These are the three issues that can cause errors in our API config file. The file isn't found, the data doesn't load, or there is a decoding issue. The data loading failed and decoding failed cases both include an underlying error. This is because these errors can occur for multiple reasons. For example, data loading failed might happen because the file is corrupted, or maybe the app doesn't have the right permissions to read the file. By including the underlying error, we capture the exact system error and use it for debugging. To finish the file, we can include user-friendly error descriptions. Hit enter a couple times after the last case, var, error description, hit tab to autocomplete. If we pause for a second, the editor will recommend finishing the property for us. Hit tab to autocomplete again. The editor did a pretty good job completing this property. Please make sure your file looks like mine. The error description string gives a better error description for each of our cases. When we get a data loading failed or decoding failed case, we include the error's localized description to see what went wrong. A quick note, the error description string isn't optional because it conforms to the localized error, which is also an optional. Our API config error enum is complete, and now it's time to put it to work. Navigate back to API config.swift. To start, let's organize the loading and decoding logic by placing it in its own function. After the parentheses, make some space, private, static, func, load, config, parentheses, throws, return arrow, API config with braces. A quick recap on functions. The private keyword restricts its function's access to only within the API config file. This ensures the logic for loading can be called directly from outside. Our singleton shared is static, which means it could be called anywhere in the project. Therefore, the function must also be static, since it'll be going inside the singleton. Load config is the name of the function. Throws allows the function to throw errors if something goes wrong, such as a missing file. Finally, the return arrow indicates the function returns an instance of API config once everything is loaded and decoded correctly. Next, let's move the loading and decoding logic into our function. Start from the last catch brace and highlight everything up until the guard statement. Command X to cut. Click inside our function and press Command V to paste. Replace the first fatal error with throw, API config error dot file not found, In the catch statement, add let error as decoding error. Replace the second fatal error with throw. API config error dot decoding failed underlying error error. We specify the error as decoding error to know exactly what went wrong with the decoding process. Decoding errors are really specific, and this helps us better debug if needed. Add another catch statement with braces. Inside type throw API config error dot data loading failed underlying error error. With this, we successfully integrated our enum to handle potential issues gracefully. Instead of crashing the app with fatal errors, we now catch and safely return descriptive errors. To finish this file, update our share singleton to be an optional. Inside the braces, write a do catch block. Inside do, return try load config. Try is needed because load config can throw errors. In the catch block, print failed to load API config error.localize description. After the message, return nil. This is why we made our share singleton an optional. If there's an error during setup, share will be nil, allowing the app to handle the situation without crashing. All that's left is to test. Go to our content view, delete the old print statements, type if let config equals API config.shared with braces, print config.API key, print config.base URL. Because API config.shared is an optional, we have to unwrap it to use it. Unwrapping means we check if it's empty or nil. The if let statement checks if it's nil, and if it isn't, we print the properties. Command R to run. If you're showing your API key with the base URL, everything went fine. But very quickly, let's simulate an error. Go to API config, and in the with extension argument, add an extra n. Command R again to run. This time, we're showing the error we defined. The API config file can't be found because the extension is mistyped. Most importantly, our app didn't crash. Very good. Please delete the extra n so everything works as expected. That's it for this video. Thank you all so much. Can't wait to see you in the next one.